Welcome to r/JustNoHOA, where people tell stories about their crazy homeowner associations. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. My HOA story from 2018. I hate that I have it, but I do. Here's my HOA story and the conclusion where it all worked out. I received a bunch of attorney office spam mail in January 2019, those with my real name and address on them. This prompted a "what the" moment. I promptly checked my state's judicial case system and found that my HOA has opened a case against me. Backtrack to August 2018, I lost a contract that accounted for about 30% of my monthly income, so a pretty good chunk. Money was tight and admittedly I did not/could not make my second annual HOA payment. So I got a few notices and the ambulance chasing attorney for the HOA mailed me saying late fees etc. Anyhow, I called to make arrangements in early December and they were none too helpful. I had already shipped off my check for the back balance, but they wanted their fees and legal costs. They demanded that I pay by end of December. So I sell some stuff, get the cash, and I am ready to pay. I call on 28th December half a dozen times with no answer at the law office. I call the HOA management company and explain that I was trying to uphold the agreement and that the law office was not responding to calls. The lady at the HOA office said she would contact the law office and let them know I was trying to get through. She also said I could go ahead and send my payment in through my usual method, bank bill pay, and she would send me a confirmation email with the law office folks for verification. I make the payments on 28th December 2018 and have the payments visible from my bank's bill pay console. I called back on 21st December as I had yet heard anything from her or the law office. She said with the holiday weekend she would follow up later in the week. That she did, and on January 2nd I received this email.
I just got off the phone with Sarah in Extortionists and Associates office. She has noted your account of your incoming payment and all payment arrangements will be valid. Please let me know if there's anything else I can help with. Thanks.
So I was under the impression this has been resolved. So much so that I have also set up recurring automated payments to my HOA so that this nonsense does not happen again. When your HOA is wrong, fight it. The HOA and its collections were taking me to court over my $117 second half 2018 HOA payment. The short of it was that I followed the exact direction of the HOA company in accordance with my payment agreement. The collections company did not like that my check came in late, even though the HOA told me to pay by my usual method and opened a case on me. My payment agreement was to pay about $320, of which they had already received and returned to me after having opened the case. I went to pre-trial, they would not budge. They wanted $756 for a $117.50 principal. I said, okay, let's talk to the judge. We set a court date, I prepared all of my evidence including call records, emails to and from the HOA, copies of the checks, everything except call recordings. I had to wipe my phone, dang it, to inform the judge I paid per their direction. I waited and I was weak for a moment and almost paid their demand. But I held out, my court date was Friday, 7th June at 2 PM. The Wednesday prior to that, 5th June, I get a call at 4 PM. Guess who it is? Anyone? It was the collections people and suddenly they want to make a deal. Their deal, I bring them the checks that I had originally sent them and we call it a deal. Well, obviously it has been months and those checks had been refunded, but I drove straight to the bank to get a cashier's check ready for them. I was in the wrong and was late with my HOA payment. I owed the $320-ish, that's fine. However, that was all I was readily willing to pay. The additional $400+ they tacked on was total BS. I hand delivered that cashier's check to them Thursday morning and the case was dismissed within the business day. I understand that the additional fees were my responsibility, but when the HOA tells you what to do, even in their errors, they should be able to correct it with their collections people. In this case, however, the HOA company was unable to control their collections and they moved forward with opening a case that apparently they knew they might lose. I don't know about you guys, but for me it's already mind-blowing that an HOA is willing to go to court over just $117. Crazy Homeowners Association enforcer gets a taste of her own medicine. I am house sitting at the moment for my cousin. He and his boyfriend live in a pretty swanky neighborhood full of McMansions. Nothing too fancy, just your common upper middle class suburban development. Anyhow, over the past few weeks they've been having a new porch installed on the back of the house. The crew has a trailer parked out front so they can lock up their tools at night. No big deal, right? Apparently, it is. This evening I get a knock on the door. I'm always wary of solicitors, so I make it a point to look out the window before answering the door. After hearing the doorbell, it takes me a minute to get to the window. As I look outside, I see a woman walking away with 2 little dogs. One of the dogs stops and proceeds to poo on my cousin's lawn. I wait until the dog is done and open the door. By this time the woman is beginning to walk away, but she sees me and turns around. She introduces herself as a board member of the HOA, Homeowners Association. She looks very annoyed. Without taking a breath, she launches into a lecture about the trailer parked out front, how she is
lucky to have walked by and caught this egregious violation of the HOA rules,
and how the trailer is an
eyesore on the neighborhood.
She says she won't report me to the board and suggests a fine if I remove it immediately. I calmly inform her about the patio construction and how the crew needs to store their tools and materials at night, but she's absolutely foaming at the mouth about how
tacky
it is to have a trailer in front of the house, and again, it is against the rules. I calmly inform her that I am not the homeowner nor the owner of the trailer and there's not much I can do about it, especially at 6:30 p.m. on a Friday night. Nevertheless, she's adamant that I do something. By this point, I'm fed up with this woman who obviously has nothing better to do with her evening than bother her neighbors with bullcrap. I look at her and casually ask, just out of curiosity, what's the fine for not picking up after your dog if it takes a shit in someone's lawn? I tell ya, the look on her face at that point was classic. She stuttered for a minute before telling me she would
have to look into that.
I told her I would be grateful if she did, because my cousin has been suspecting a neighbor of letting their dog poop in his lawn, so he set up a video camera in the window to catch the culprit. Upon hearing that, she got a little flustered and told me to tell the patio crew to hurry up, then she walked away with a huff. A small victory to be sure, but quite satisfying nevertheless. Guys, do you have any video cameras set up around your house? If you have some crazy HOA people, especially HOA presidents on a power trip, that might be a good idea to invest in. And by the way, if you have watched until here, please don't forget to post some star emojis in the comments and also like the video if you want to support me. Also, if you are part of the 60% of people who watch my channel without being subscribed, then first, shame on you. Just kidding of course, but I would really appreciate if you could also subscribe. But now let's continue with the stories. I cannot plant flowers? Earlier this year I had acquired 5 columbine flower plants, my favorite flower. They were actually meant for the cull pile, but a friend of mine rescued them for me because they really were not that bad off. After spending a couple of weeks in my house getting nice and healthy, I decided it was time to plant them outdoors. I always wanted to plant flowers because it is so drab, dull and generic around here. Now I live in a condo complex and I don't know who has allergies and who doesn't, so I started planting them in the mulched tree footprints in the parking area, well away from anyone's windows or back door. In saunters the crappy lady that's on the HOA board only because she took the job that no one else wants. Lady, in a very loud voice,
I hate to tell you, but you cannot do that.
Me? I have permission from lady who is also on the board. BL, still in a very loud voice,
well, I'm on the board too, and I've never heard of this going through.
Me, I don't know what to tell you, I will double check with other lady. Now, I would not have been so petty with my revenge if this woman did not strut around the neighborhood wearing her HOA board ID on a lanyard around her neck all the time and basically policing the community. But I just got done planting 8,000 columbine seeds all over the place by the cover of darkness, wearing all black. I felt like Ethan Hunt. Columbine seeds are about the size of poppy seeds, so 8,000 seeds is not really that much. It took me approximately 45 minutes. All I had to do was rough up a patch of ground about 3 inches deep, scatter 4 to 6 seeds, then cover it back up and tamp it down. I cannot wait until the year after next to see all the beautiful colors. To someone who has literally no experience in regards to gardening, planting 8,000 seeds in 45 minutes sure sounds like a lot. I'm curious guys, are any of my ripe stars super into gardening? For a relative of mine, it's one of her biggest hobbies. Plus we can get a lot of fresh herbs year round, so I cannot complain. And the next story, got 2 HOA board members removed from board because they tried to bully me. I did not really pay attention to my HOA. It's a new community under 2 years. I only went to my first meeting because a neighbor I have become buddies with told me HOA was being shady. My undergrad degree is in political science, so being a government structure / process nerd, I figured I would check out the shenanigans for myself. At the meeting, one of the board members was being confronted about something he had done. Initially, I had no clue what they were talking about, but by listening I quickly understood the context and scope. The board member responds to the questions by yelling and using pretty abusive language towards the residents who were asking him questions about what he did. That is a red flag. During his tirade, he told the people confronting him that he did not answer to him. Second board member chimed in, saying we were powerless and repeats the "We don't have to answer you." Second red flag. I've had enough. I raise my hand, the president, nice board member and good guy in general, recognizes me, gives me the floor. Since it is my first time there, the fight paused and it got quiet. It was weird. I simply but clearly told the 2 jerk board members that in fact we are the only people they answer to in this role. First jerk board member did not like that and instantly became abusive towards me and started to try to bully me. Now I am a sleeping bear. I don't mess with anyone, but if someone messes with me, I make it my mission to let them know I can be the bigger bully. After his response to me and another resident said to him, "We have lost faith in you, you should step down." The board member replied, "I've lost faith in you." Made no sense. A second resident said basically to step down or we will recall you. The board member said, "You will have to force me off." I then said, "Then that is what we will effing do." In the next few days I analyzed my state's HOA laws and my HOA's articles of incorporation, bylaws and covenants. I realized the election of the 2 jerk board members was completely against the bylaws. So I wrote a demand letter to the HOA's attorney stating that the election of these 2 was in violation of our bylaws and they must be removed from the board. Attorney agreed with my analysis and the 2 members were forced off the board. Anticlimactic, but go government structure / process nerds. By the way guys, just to quickly chime in, please let me know in the comments if you still enjoy these HOA stories. That is crucial because your opinion will dictate the direction of the channel. And the next HOA story was posted by Burned Out Plumber on our own subreddit r/ripe stories, where you are also welcome to post your own stories. However, this one is titled How the HOA Shot Themselves in the Foot. I love listening to Ripe during my workday. Always perks up my day. This is pretty much the only HOA story I have and it's not much, but I hope you enjoy. So this story does not unfortunately have much dialogue and is second or third hand depending on how you look at it. One of my close friends, let's call him Leo, not his real name but close enough. Leo, while fully employed, loves extra money. I mean, who doesn't? He does occasional work for a general contractor, GC, who buys and flips houses and acts as a landlord if the buying market is not strong. Thus, GC knows his rights and laws when it comes to being a landlord / property owner in our lovely state. Let's call Massachusetts filled with lovely people called mayholes. Leo got a call last year from GC to clear out a newly purchased property, a foreclosure via an auction. The stipulation was that it was an as-is property. You could not negotiate pricing based upon the state of the house. The reason for the foreclosure was due to an unpaid debt followed by a lien on the home and eventually foreclosure. Here enters the HOA. Now, we do not know the history of what happened. if the HOA were handing out bogus fines or if the previous homeowners were truly negligent while living there. Regardless, the HOA eventually were able to get a lien on the home in question, and it eventually went into foreclosure due to the outstanding debt. Now we are at the point of, okay, this HOA sounds like they are a bunch of jerks, and what's the point of this story? This, my dear readers, is where the story begins. Now, because this story is secondhand, please excuse me if I get some of these terms and legalities incorrect. So GC purchases home via auction and begins work on said home. And of course, this draws the attention of the HOA. Apparently, they are anti-flippers and so begin trying to track down the GC who is not there because, well, he does not live there. This is where the fines start to happen. No dumpsters allowed, no working outside of certain hours, no leaving equipment unattended in visible spaces. All the usual malarkey. GC could care less. He knew what he was doing when purchasing the property. Everyone said,
"Don't do it, it's an HOA."
GC just smiled and shook his head, I imagine. GC gathers all the notices and waits for the next HOA meeting. Enter our GC in all heroic glory, just kidding. As the HOA begins to dress him down, our GC waits patiently till it was his turn to speak. Once it is his turn to speak, he says, "I'm gonna let you know that the end result of today's meeting is not going to be me paying you." He flips through some of his paperwork that he has brought along and produced a code in a bylaw that stated in short, once a home that had once been in an HOA goes into foreclosure and is not purchased by said HOA prior to an auction or during said auction, that home is now no longer a part of said development community. In short, because the HOA had not purchased the home prior to it being sold, it was no longer a part of the community the HOA stood to take care of, and they cannot find the property nor the property owner for anything other than what is clearly listed in city ordinances if he were to break any of those rules, which he had not. GC knew all of this prior to purchase. GC had the ultimate ace up his sleeve. GC kinda has a guilty pleasure of telling HOAs to go stuff themselves. Thank you very much for sharing this satisfying story, Burnt Out Plumber. If anyone else has HOA or other stories to share, but especially HOA and Just No Mother-in-Law, then please feel free to share them on r/ripe stories. And the next one has nothing to do with HOAs, but it is just a satisfying story from Stacy, posted on our subreddit once again. It is titled, "Just because you have money doesn't mean you're better than anyone else." This is something I remembered from my teen years when I worked at a fast food place called Burger King. The reason why I remembered this now is because I bumped into the boy, man now, that treated me the way he did back then. So let me explain what happened and you will understand the title of this story. So if my memory is correct, I was working the cash register at Burger King, just doing my basic duties as I always did. I was polite to people and they in general were polite to me. There were the regulars that came in to get their coffee and food and would sit a while visiting with each other. Mainly it was the older folks that would stay longer, and while I was working I would sometimes check on the customers to see if they were alright or if they needed a refill on their coffees. In walked this boy who had to be about my age. Remember, I stated I was a teen, I just cannot remember if I was 17 or 18 at the time, but this boy was around the same age as me. I greeted him my usual greeting and he was rude to me right off the bat. He would be snippy to me and talk down to me like I was nothing. His attitude towards me upset me and I was trying to get his order done in a speedy fashion because I wanted him gone. Every time I would say something, he would say something like,
"Are you stupid?"
or
"Idiot, I said no pickles."
Even though I would ring him up the way he wanted, except he could not see my screen, so he would still say things like this. In behind him was a woman, but I did not know at the time this woman was his mother. She was glaring at him the whole time. Finally, I thought I was finished ringing him up and I told him the total. Instead of handing me the money, he threw it at me and some of it fell on the floor. He was laughing and then said,
"Pick it up, stupid."
And then said,
"You're so stupid, you cannot even pick up the money fast enough."
I was starting to lose my patience and I think everyone could see it because I started to cry. Not because of being scared, but because I was angry. Then it happened. The woman behind him smacked him hard on the back of his head. All of us, my co-workers, the customers, just stared at what happened in shock. The boy said,
"Oh mom, why did you do that?"
She glared at him and said, "What do you think?" He then said,
"It's not my fault this stupid girl is so stupid. She should work faster or get fired. She does not deserve my money."
And then the mother smacked him again and said, "Just because you have money does not mean you're better than anyone else." The boy started to say something and she stopped him by saying, "You have to treat others the way you want to be treated. By the way you are treating this girl, it shows me that you want to be treated the same way. Now say you're sorry to this girl and you pay for your food the correct way. And when we get home, you will be filling out applications because your father and I will no longer be handing you out money. You're gonna learn what it means to earn a living." The boy looked at me and mumbled, "I'm sorry." The mother said, "She did not hear you. Say it louder. Make sure it's loud enough that everyone in here can hear you." Then he looked at his mother and said,
"But mom, she's stupid."
The mother smacked him a third time and said, "You don't know this girl. You don't know her background or anything about her. You have no right to judge her. Do you think that she should put up with the way you treat her? No, she shouldn't. Now apologize and pay." So he turned to me and said louder,
"I'm sorry."
And he handed me the money this time. Everyone, including me, were stunned. I said, "Thank you, please come again," and processed his payment. The mother then came up and ordered a coffee for herself, and she ordered burgers and fries for everyone in the restaurant, even if they already had food. She apologized to me again for his son's behavior and gave me a $20 tip. Back then we were allowed to take tips. She smiled at me and paid for everything and then waited for her coffee and the food beside her son. He never looked up once after all this. When his food came out, he did not say anything until his mother said, "What do you say?" And then he said,
"Thank you."
She waited for her items she ordered, and then when it came out, she handed out the burgers and fries to everyone seated. An older woman thanked her and said, "It's a blessing to see that not all people with more money are snotty," and gave her a hug. The whole time the boy sat at a table further away while his mother handed out food and talked with people. My manager had let me go on a break to calm myself down. I was about to order my food for my break. Back then, when you are on a break, you had to pay for food, but it cost less for employees than it did for customers. But the mother came up and said, "I would like to pay for your food for you." And she looked at my manager and asked him if that would be okay, and he approved it. Then she said to me, "Come sit with me." When I got my food, I sat with her and we got to talk. She was pleased to learn that I was working because I wanted to better my education, and when I told her about my hobbies, she seemed very happy. She then gave me her name and number and told me to call her when I finished work, that she wanted to order a painting from me. The rest of the day was normal. By the time I got home, I almost forgot about everything until I saw the card she gave me with her name and number. I did not call her for 3 days later and told her that I honestly was not sure if I would call her. She told me she understood. She did order a painting from me. It was a scenic painting of a sun setting behind a cabin by a lake. It took me a while to finish the painting, but when I did, I called her again and she paid me more than I expected. The money she gave me for the painting helped me save up for school supplies and art supplies. Years went by, but I always remembered the kindness that lady showed me. I also remembered her rude son. Eventually, I moved away and did not hear from them. But recently, I bumped into her son and he is kinder now as an adult. He told me he was hoping one day he would see me again to apologize in the proper way to me. He told me his mother still has the painting I did for her and it is hanging above her fireplace. He said his mother is very proud of that painting and tells everyone her adoptive daughter painted it for her. He gave me her new number and told me she would love to hear from me again. We bumped into each other in the Burger King in my town that I do not work at. He came in to order food for his new wife and her daughter before their trip back home. He introduced her to me and told her about the time he treated me real bad when he was younger. Later in the evening, I called up his mother again and we talked for over 2 hours. She was telling me about what happened since I moved away and asking me how I was and if I went to school for my art. I told her about my job and what I do now, and I told her I still paint. She told me as far as she was concerned, I am her adoptive daughter and she will always think of me as that. She invited me to visit her for the New Year's, so guess where I'm going for New Year's. Anyway, I wanted to share this with all of you and I hope you enjoy it. I'm so happy to have this wonderful woman back in my life and the rest of her family too. I will be visiting them more often, and if I have any more good stories to share, I will share them. I hope you all had a wonderful holiday season and I hope you all have a great New Year's too. Thanks for posting the story, Stacy, and please let us know in the comments how New Year's Eve went with that kind woman. But anyway guys, unfortunately that has to be the last story for today. I hope you enjoyed the content, and please don't forget, if you're not subscribed yet, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe, because we are not too far away from 13k subscribers. But anyway, I hope you have a fantastic day, and I see you again tomorrow.